Welcome to 2022 and welcome back to E2 TOEFL. I'm Jay.
And I'm Mark, and in this video, we're going to talk about passing TOEFL in 2022. You can do it, and we are going to help you.
That's right. If you're watching this, it means that you need to get your TOEFL scores in 2022. Maybe you need your results next week or next month, or maybe even in 6 months' time. Maybe you need an 80 or a 90 or even 100. Either way, you have to start thinking about it now. Mark, you've been teaching English for 10 years. What's the most important thing someone should do to pass TOEFL?
You need to set goals. You need to break your main goal of passing TOEFL into smaller daily goals and weekly goals so that the main goal becomes achievable. And the first thing you should do is download our 2022 TOEFL Goal Setter from the description below.
That's right. You're going to use the goal setter to set your daily and weekly goals and stick to them so you can achieve your main goal of getting a high score.
Right. We'll be working through this goal setter as we move through the video together. Download it, print it out, stick it on your fridge, use it. Just keep in mind that E2's helped over 1.5 million students get the English language test scores they need. So we know what you need to do. I also recommend subscribing to this YouTube channel and following us.
And if you really just want to get the job done as soon as possible, click the link in the description below and go across to E2 Test Prep. Okay, before we look at each section of the test and what you need to do to pass, I want to quickly talk to you about 3 considerations before you do anything. First, find out your target scores.
Right. It's up to you to find out what score you need for university entrance or migration or employment. This is a critical first step as it sets a stake in the ground. This becomes your aim or target.
Second, find out your current scores.
Exactly. You need to know where you stand or where your English is in relation to your target scores. You can do this very simply by taking our TOEFL full mock test on E2.
Absolutely. The TOEFL mock test by E2 is the perfect place to start your preparation. It'll give you a good idea of what to expect in the real TOEFL, and it will give you an indicative score and feedback on your speaking and writing.
Great. So I know my target scores and I will know my current scores. What's the third consideration?
Third, determine the gap between your target scores and your current scores. This is your major aim, to close this gap. We're now going to go through each section of the test, and Mark and I will give you our most important goal setting tips, okay? Make sure you get the downloadable goal setter from the description below. By doing this now, it'll make your life a lot easier in the future. Let's talk about how to pass TOEFL listening in 2022.
I highly recommend listening to podcasts. They're a great way to improve your English while you're doing something else, like driving or sitting on the bus. And I highly recommend subscribing to the Everyday English podcast by E2. It's a podcast in English about learning English, so it's super helpful.
Great idea. So write this onto your daily goal setter for listening. Listen to some English every single day, even if it's just 2 minutes. It'll help.
What do you recommend for TOEFL listening, Jay?
My biggest tip is to learn the 8 TOEFL listening tasks back to front. You need to know the gist, content questions, gist purpose, detail, function, attitude, inference, organization, and also the connecting content questions. And I especially recommend focusing on those inference question types.
Here's one from E2. It's good to practice these questions well before test day.
Yeah, these inference questions can be pretty tricky because you're kind of reading between the lines. You're not reading something explicitly mentioned, you're reading what is implicitly mentioned, and this is tough to get your head around.
And it's important to understand the writer's attitude.
Absolutely. You might want to write this down as your weekly goal. Attend a TOEFL listening live class on E2.
Yeah, they're great, very helpful, and our teachers are the best. Let's talk about how to pass TOEFL reading in 2022. What's your main tip to get a high score in reading in 2022, Jay?
Well, I hate to say it, but reading is all about vocabulary. So you'll need to continually build your vocabulary. As such, I recommend reading in English every single day. Even if it's just one news story or one magazine article, try to make it a habit. Write this down as your daily goal for reading. I'd also recommend reading widely across a variety of topics and also keeping flashcards to note down new words. So when you come across a new word, think about whether it's a noun, a verb, or an adjective, write it down, and then write down the translation on the back. And then you need to review your vocab once a week as well.
Yeah, good idea. You never know what the reading passages will be about, so it's a good idea to have a broad vocabulary and to be comfortable reading about a broad range of topics. So what I would do as my weekly goal for reading is do some high quality practice questions on E2. You'll start to see how these questions work, how the synonyms work, how the distractors work, and how to understand those tricky question types. All right, Jay, so before we get into writing, what about you? What are your goals for 2022?
Well, I'm going to study maths and physics, not.
Whoa.
No, not really. It's not my thing. This year, I'm going to study Farsi, which is the Persian language which they speak in Iran and Afghanistan, I think in Tajikistan as well. So that's my goal. So every day, I'm going to learn a little bit of vocabulary. I'm going to have my weekly goals as well, where I listen to a podcast or something like that. That's my aim for 2022.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I'm learning Catalan. I've been learning it for a little while. I'm already at a pretty intermediate level. Catalan is a language they speak in northeastern Spain. And yeah, I've got to really step up my regular reading and listening. And I'm going to make a better effort as well to make notes on not just new vocabulary, but short expressions that I can also use when I'm speaking.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you'll have daily and weekly goals?
Yes, so it'll be reading, listening, but more importantly, I'm going to be reviewing the vocabulary that I make notes of. And it's not going to be like lots and lots and lots. I think it's kind of important to have like, you know, maybe 16 short phrases or key organization words, and to learn those really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not going to try to learn, you know, translations or anything like that.
Yeah. Make your goals achievable.
Yeah. Let's talk about how to pass TOEFL writing in 2022. Let's just condense TOEFL writing into one. So this part of the video relates to integrated writing and independent writing. What's your biggest tip, Jay?
My biggest tip is to improve your grammar. You can't have sloppy grammar. You know, like little things like articles or prepositions or verb tenses, you need to get them right. And in order to do this, I recommend checking out another YouTube channel we have called E2 English. So in the search bar, just search E2 English or click the link in the description below. There are lots of great videos on there to help straighten out your grammar. Write this into your weekly goal setter. Watch one E2 English video per week.
These are the TOEFL writing criteria. And when it comes to TOEFL writing, this is what it's all about. These describe the way you should write in order to get a high score. If you satisfy them, you'll get a high score. And if you don't satisfy them, you're going to get a lower score. It's as simple as that. The feedback we give you is based on these criteria, and our markers are trained experts, so you know our feedback is going to be beneficial.
So we have 2 weekly tips. Watch an E2 English grammar video here on YouTube and get some feedback on your writing. So Mark, do you have any daily tips to improve your writing?
Well, here's my daily tip. Do you remember the vocabulary that you learned earlier? Use it in a sentence. Write a sentence with it. Maybe when you create your flashcard, write an example sentence or 2 example sentences. So, in short, write a sentence or 2 every day using the vocabulary that you've learned from reading.
Okay, let's talk about how to pass TOEFL speaking in 2022.
So Jay, you've taught thousands of TOEFL students. What is your biggest tip for speaking?
Well, if you don't have somebody to speak with, then I really recommend doing read alouds because it's good for your pronunciation and it also builds your confidence. So on your goal sheet, you might want to write down read aloud under the daily speaking goal. What about you, Mark? What do you think is critical for TOEFL speaking success?
Personally, I think getting good at listening and taking notes is critical. It'll actually help you with both TOEFL speaking and TOEFL writing. It's a skill you really need to get good at.
And what about doing a proper mock speaking test?
Oh, for sure. That's super helpful. That's the first thing you should do. I'd do it straight after watching this video. Don't wait. Click the link in the description below. Get a feel for what it's like to take the test and get some expert feedback so you know where you stand. So let's say you're aiming for 20s and you take the E2 mock test and you get 25 for listening, 18 for reading, 15 for writing, and say 20 for speaking. For this person, I'd still practice listening because 5 points is only a few questions. For reading, I'd give myself a month. Basically, if you're 2 points short, give yourself a month of study. For writing, I'd give myself 2 months and lots of feedback. Writing can be tricky to improve quickly. It requires expert help. I'd even think about taking a one-on-one tutorial. For speaking, well, you're on the line. I'd still practice, maybe take another one-on-one tutorial with personalized feedback so you can bump that score up and be safe.
Great idea and great tips, but what about you? Do you have any tips that you want to share with other TOEFL test takers?
Pop them into the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. My name is Mark.
My name is Jay, and we wish you the best of luck in 2022 with your TOEFL.